All right, let's talk about tech interviews. You know that feeling, right? The anxiety of trying to explain your projects in a way that actually sounds impressive. Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful way to turn your real-world experience into answers that will get you hired. So let's start with the big one.
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We all know we're supposed to sound confident, but what does that really mean when you're on the spot? Let's forget all the vague advice and just look at a concrete A-plus example. Now just listen to this. It's sharp, it's packed with specific tech, and it connects everything back to real companies and real work. It just screams confidence. This right here, this is our gold standard. So how do you get your experience to sound like this? Well, it's not magic, it's a formula.
And that's exactly what we're going to crack open today. There's a simple, repeatable structure behind these powerful answers that you can use for pretty much any technical question they throw at you.
And here's the thing you have to get. Interviewers don't just want you to recite a list of technologies from your resume. No way. They want to hear a story about what you've actually done. They want to see how you solve problems, how you think, and the value you bring. Your experience is basically a collection of these little stories.
So here it is, the secret sauce, the Problem Action Result Formula, or PAR for short. It's a super simple three-step story. First, you set the scene. What was the problem? Then you talk about what you did, what was your action, and finally, you tell them how it ended, what was the result. It's really that straightforward.
Okay, enough theory. Let's see how this PAR formula actually works in the real world. We're going to take a few common interview scenarios and plug them right into this framework. First up, a classic back-end task, dependency management. Let's say the interviewer asks, so what role does Maven play in your projects? Instead of giving them a boring textbook definition, you tell a PAR story. Let's break it down. The problem? Upgrading our Java version created a bunch of version conflicts. The action? I went in, upgraded Maven, updated the pom.xml with the right drivers, and sorted out all those conflicts. And the result? The API is compiled, packaged, and deployed perfectly through our Jenkins pipeline. See? You didn't just define Maven, you showed how you used it to solve a real problem. That's so much more powerful. And hey, don't think for a second this is just a back-end trick. This framework works for everything. Let's jump over to the front end and tackle a big, messy migration task. You know, when they ask about that huge legacy application you had to update. Let's run the play again. The problem? We were stuck on an old Angular 2 app that desperately needed modernizing. The action? I personally replaced deprecated modules, updated all the RxJS syntax, and even introduced lazy loading for better performance. The result? We got a modern, much faster system that was perfectly aligned with our back-end APIs. In just a few sentences, you've turned a massive project into a clear story of success. And of course, to really get why these stories matter, it helps to see the whole picture. You've got Angular on the client side, handling everything the user sees and interacts with, and then you have Spring Boot on the server side, doing the heavy lifting with business logic and databases. They talk to each other securely using these things called JWT tokens, which is a super important piece of the puzzle for a lot of modern apps. Okay, time for a high-pressure scenario. The interviewer leans in and says, tell me about a time you had to fix a bug in production. Oof, this isn't just a test of your coding skills. It's a test of how you handle a crisis. The PAR formula is absolutely perfect for this. It shows you're logical and calm under pressure. The problem: a critical bug was breaking the appointment system for actual patients. The action: I dove into the Splunk logs to trace the error, I reproduced it on my own machine, and then I coded the fix. The result? The bug was totally squashed, we redeployed, and everything was back to normal. That shows ownership from beginning to end. You notice how the result in our stories often ends with a successful deployment. Well, that doesn't just happen by magic. It's all managed by something called a CI/CD pipeline, which is basically an automated process for getting code from a developer's computer out into the world. Think of it like a high-tech assembly line for your code. First, a tool like Jenkins builds and tests everything. Then SonarQube scans it for any quality issues or bugs. After that, Docker wraps it all up in a neat little package called a container. And finally, it gets shipped off and deployed to the cloud. Every single step is automated to make releases faster and safer. Okay, so you've absolutely crushed their questions. You're done, right? Not quite. A really great interview isn't just an interrogation. Now it's your turn to shift from being just an interviewee to being a potential colleague. And you have to remember this. An interview is a two-way street. Asking smart, thoughtful questions is just as important as giving great answers. It shows you're actually interested, that you're thinking critically about the job, and that you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. But don't just ask about the vacation policy. Ask questions that prove you're already thinking like a member of the team. Asking about the tech stack's challenges shows you're a problem solver. Asking about team structure shows you care about how you'll work with others. And asking about future plans, that shows you're invested in the long-term success of the product. These are the kinds of questions that make you stand out. So, let's bring it all home. We've taken apart what makes a perfect answer, and we've talked about how to turn the interview into a genuine conversation.
So here's the bottom line. Every single bug you've fixed, every feature you've built, every system you've upgraded, it's a story. And the problem action result formula is the tool you use to tell that story in a compelling way. It brings your resume to life.
So, before your next interview, I want you to look back at your work. Think about the challenges and the wins, frame them using PAR, and ask yourself this one question. What is the most powerful story that your experience can tell?